President Donald Trump has bombed Iran. Was that the right thing to do? Welcome to Sharpening Arrows, where we train teens to think biblically about life and politics. I'm your host, Victor Jakes. Now, if you want to watch the show, we are on YouTube, youtube.com/@sharpeningarrows, youtube.com/@sharpeningarrows. And if you're new to the podcast, welcome. This is a bit of a unique podcast. I encourage parents and teens, or parents and preteens, to listen together. We're going to talk about the news of the day, the ideas and the policies that are defining political debates, but we're going to do that in a unique way. We're going to talk about the best ideas of the other side. In that case, in this case, it's the side of the liberals, the side of unbelievers, non-Christians, and this is really important because I think there's a temptation among Christian conservative parents to push those ideas off and say, that's forbidden. We don't have to worry about that. They're just wrong. And the problem is that when teenagers are released, when we shoot those arrows out, they're going to go out into the world and they're going to find that the people on the other side are not stupid, are not unintelligent, and that they have arguments that have some appeal. It doesn't mean their arguments are right, but they are arguments with appeal. And we need to prepare our teenagers and our preteens to understand those arguments and how to rebut them. That is especially true in the case of foreign policy, because in foreign policy, it's simply not as clear-cut as domestic policy. And so there's lots of room for debate and discussion, and even when you agree with something very strongly, in foreign policy, you have to recognize there are a lot of trade-offs. So, this last weekend, I took my two oldest children to California. We were there for a speech tournament. Had a wonderful time, really a great tournament. Kids had a lot of fun. And just as an aside, if you are a Christian homeschooler in Las Vegas, I help lead a couple of speech groups. So contact me. Let's figure out how to help your teens do this. It's a great event. It's a great way for them to hone their speaking ability and their thinking ability. But on Saturday, I was sitting in the tabulation room with my friend Rex, and he just kind of casually mentions that, oh, we started bombing Iran. It's like, okay, well, didn't realize that. I was busy driving, getting ready, and getting my kids to the tournament, and there it was. The world moved on without me. But that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about President Donald Trump deciding to go and attack Iran. Okay, very important. Anytime news breaks, really encourage you to figure out what's actually happening. I know this seems really basic, but oftentimes what the right policy is, the right idea, depends a whole lot on the facts on the ground. So obviously, I'm recording this late Monday afternoon. Things will have changed by the time you listen to this, but I'm just going to give you an overview. President Donald Trump announced major combat operations in Iran aimed at wiping out Tehran's ballistic missile program and debilitating Ayatollah Ali Khamenei's regime. This is from the USA Today, and if you've listened for a while, you'll know that one of my superpowers is mispronouncing names. So I'm just gonna tell you that's happening today. I will do my best, but just fair warning. The U.S. began carrying out strikes on Iran in coordination with Israel in the early morning of Saturday, February 28th, after nuclear negotiations failed to produce a deal that satisfied all of the Trump administration's concerns, including an end to its missile program. A short time ago, the United States military began major combat operations on Iran, Trump said in a video statement. Our objective is to defend the American people by eliminating imminent threats from the Iranian regime, a vicious group of very hard, terrible people. Okay, so kind of the background here on what's happening is a nuclear weapon can kill tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people. And so it is obviously something that's very, very powerful, very scary. And what terrorist regimes are doing is they're pursuing a nuclear weapon, and the reason is they think if we have this, then we're safe. Because if the U.S. attacks us, if Israel attacks us, if another Western ally attacks us, we'll just lob the nuclear weapon at them. And they'll be so afraid of that they won't come after us. And if you look at North Korea, that's basically what's happened. North Korea is a failed state, a terrible regime, oppressive. Citizens live in poverty. It doesn't like the West, but it has a nuclear weapon, and we just kind of keep it over there, keep it over there in the corner. And the problem with Iran is that the people who used to run Iran, still, the regime that may be in control, is very much interested in attacking Israel and in attacking the U.S., and if they had a nuclear weapon, would certainly not be afraid to use it. All right. So as I record here, as I said, late Monday evening, this is from the New York Times, kind of discussing the buildup to the war. The U.S. and Israel have been discussing potential strikes last week. The White House had been trying to do negotiations with Iran over the last several weeks to get Iran to give up its nuclear program. Iran had refused, and then this is from the New York Times. The timing was ultimately determined by a remarkable intelligence coup. The CIA, which had been closely tracking Ayatollah Khamenei's movements, learned that the supreme leader was planning to be at his residential compound in central Tehran, that's Iran's capital, on Saturday morning. Senior Iranian civilian and military leaders were also set to convene at the same location at the same time. The CIA passed the intelligence to the Israelis, and leaders of both countries decided to kick off the war with a bold decapitation strike in daylight. As he flew to Corpus Christi on Friday afternoon to deliver a speech about energy, Mr. Trump gave the official go order. Those who attended the meeting of the Supreme National Security Council, this is in Iran, felt no urgency to meet in underground bunkers or other secret locations that might be unknown to American or Israeli spies. That turned out to be a mistake on their part and allowed the U.S. military to kill several layers of Iranian leadership. This is on Sunday. The U.S. has continued to attack Iran. This is from open sources intel on X. Iranian media Khamenei's son, Mojtaba Khamenei, who has long been discussed as one of the potential successors, has been eliminated. So the U.S. didn't just kill the supreme leader, they killed the son and possible heir. CENTCOM, that's the U.S. military command in the Middle East, wrote on X recently, 2 days ago, the Iranian regime had 11 ships in the Gulf of Oman. Today, they have 0. The Iranian regime has harassed and attacked international shipping in the Gulf of Oman for decades. Those days are over. Freedom of maritime navigation has underpinned American and global economic prosperity for more than 80 years. U.S. forces will continue to defend it. The U.S. has hit around 1,250 targets so far. Here's how Trump summed up what's happening. First, we're destroying Iran's missile capabilities. Second, we're annihilating their navy. Third, we're ensuring the world's #1 sponsor of terror can never obtain a nuclear weapon. Finally, we are ensuring the Iranian regime can't continue to arm, fund, and direct terrorist armies outside their borders. Trump has said the war could go on for 4 to 5 weeks, but may go on for much longer. 6 U.S. service members have very tragically died, and as Trump has said, more are likely to die. So let's have our first pause point. If you are new to the podcast, this is one of the unique things that we do is I encourage you to actually stop the podcast and talk about these questions with your teen or preteen. What do you think about the war with Iran? All right, so there have been a lot of arguments about this. And as we do on this podcast, we're going to start with arguments for the side that I personally disagree with. We'll respond to those, and then we'll make the case for the correct side. All right, so argument number 1. This is an illegal war. Just look at the Constitution. Right there, Article 1, Section 8. Congress shall have power to declare war. Congress didn't declare war. How could it have? Trump carried out this attack in secret. And if Congress didn't declare war, it is therefore unconstitutional. It's as simple as that. Therefore, Trump should not have done this. All right, let's have a pause point. When was the last time the U.S. officially was at war? What do you think? We had the war on terror. We had the Desert Storm War, Vietnam. What do you think? When was the last time the U.S. was officially at war? All right, argument number 2. This is a war of personal choice. This is kind of the attack from the left. Is that, Trump is just, willy-nilly going out and attacking people. This wasn't necessary. And this is Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer. This is his statement on the U.S. military operations. When I talked to Secretary Rubio, that's Marco Rubio, I implored him to be straight with Congress and the American people about the objectives of these strikes and what comes next. Iran must never be allowed to obtain a nuclear weapon. But the American people do not want another endless and costly war in the Middle East when there are so many problems at home. The administration has not provided Congress and the American people with critical details about the scope and immediacy of the threat, confronting Iran's malign regional activities, nuclear ambitions, and harsh opposition of the Iranian people demands American strength, resolve, regional coordination, and strategic clarity. Unfortunately, President Trump's fitful cycles of lashing out and risking wider conflict are not a viable strategy. So see, this is what Schumer is saying is, I support Trump's objectives. He's just going about it in the wrong way. All right, let's get to the third argument, and this is the argument I think is the most interesting, and this argument is actually coming from some people who generally support Trump, from the right. This war isn't America first. America first, as the name implies, it involves fixing America. I don't know if you've noticed, but we have lots of problems here in America. There was a mass shooter in response to this attack, from all available evidence, in Texas over the weekend. We should be deporting illegal immigrants, legal immigrants who don't support American values. And further, Trump campaigned against the Iraq War, against forever wars, against regime change. And this action doesn't uphold any of those commitments. Matt Walsh is a terrific podcaster. Really enjoy his show on the Daily Wire. And he has come out very strongly with his concerns. And, what you'll notice if you start, kind of really listening to people and dissecting arguments is that some people's opinions change based on who is doing the talking. Remember, that's something we don't want to do. One of our grade 8 questions is about the ideas, not the person talking. But Matt Walsh, I think, actually has a principled objection to this conflict, and so that's why it's really worth digging into what he's going to say. Here's some of his argument. The U.S. This is a quote from Matt Walsh. The U.S. government shouldn't do anything outside of our country unless it will directly and first and foremost benefit Americans. The benefit must be a net gain, so the cost we pay is outweighed by the reward. And his contention is that that's not happening here. All right, continuing. This is from a different post, but kind of the same line of argument. So far, we've heard that although we killed the whole Iranian regime, this was not a regime change war. And although we obliterated their nuclear program, we had to do this because of their nuclear program. And although Iran was not planning any attacks on the U.S., they also might have been, depending on who you ask. And although we are not fighting this war to free the Iranian people, they are now free, or might be, depending on whoever seizes power. And we have no idea who that will be. The messaging on this thing is, to put it mildly, confusing. And then in another post, Walsh said, I can't take the gaslighting, guys. I really can't. Conservatives are now running around saying, Iran has been waging war on us for 47 years. Okay, then why didn't any of you call for an attack on Iran at any point until now? Why didn't you make a case for Trump ending the war, not starting it until precisely the moment when Trump did? You and I both know that you are latching on to a talking point you never used until 45 seconds ago. You and I both know that almost every conservative influencer in the business was opposed to war with Iran until just now. And now you're trying to use justifications that stretch back decades. It doesn't make any sense. If you changed your mind, fine, say so. Explain why. You're allowed to change your mind. I've changed my mind about things, but don't try to rewrite history. Be honest about it. There's too much at stake to play these games. Let's have another pause point. Should you stop listening to someone that you generally agree with because you disagree with them on a major issue? As you think about that, let me tell you about Mama Bear Prayers, a podcast for moms who are knee-deep in dishes and training their teens. Whether you are in the carpool lane or the coffee line, host Charity Rios wants to come alongside you and help you grow deeper in your relationship with Jesus. Now, as every parent knows, raising kids can feel a bit like a ping pong game. You bounce from moments of joy to moments of deepest concern. Combined with the busyness of life, this back and forth can leave you feeling overwhelmed and even isolated. As the mom of 4 very busy boys, Charity knows this firsthand. That's why she created Mama Bear Prayers, to support moms who are on the journey of raising children. God works through prayer. And as we're discussing today, our country needs prayer. Our leaders need prayer. Check out Mama Bear Prayers today. All right, if you've been listening to this podcast for a while, you know there is a running bit where I tell you I'm going to keep the podcast I'm going to shoot for 20 minutes, but at least keep it under 30. I have really bad news. I'm not making 30 minutes today. Please accept my apologies. All right, so let's dig into these arguments with another pause point. Which of the great 8 questions would you use in response to these arguments? And remember, the great 8 questions are questions that we put into our mental toolbox so that when we encounter an argument we aren't familiar with, we have tools to look at it, to examine it, to see if it's a strong argument, to see where its weak points are, to see if it holds up under scrutiny. Question 1, what happens next? Question 2, has this been tried before? Question 3, is there a principle involved? Question 4, what are the trade-offs? Question 5, what do you mean by that? Question 6, is this an appeal to emotion or logic? Question 7, am I focused on the speaker or the argument? And question 8, what does the Bible say? All right, so let's look at these arguments for the wrong side. Argument number 1 is that this is an illegal war. What's appealing about this argument? Well, we are very, very obviously at war. President Trump has attacked Iran. We are bombing the country. They are shooting missiles at us. That's what a war looks like. Okay, so let's go to question 2. Has this been tried before when the U.S. has attacked countries in recent decades? Have we officially been at war? Remember that question about when was the last time we officially declared war? History.com gives us the answer. It was during World War II. The Korean War, the war in Vietnam, and the extended campaigns in Afghanistan and Iraq were never stamped with congressional declarations of war. Now, because I don't want this to be a 3-hour podcast, I'm not going to get into the War Powers Act, the history here of Congress basically wanting to wash its hands of anything and so that they don't have to be held responsible by voters. I think there are some real concerns there. But for the immediate time, for the immediate question, this is how American presidents in the last several decades, going on something like 80 years now, this is how they go on the attack. And we do have to acknowledge there is a tension in the Constitution, because while the Constitution gives Congress the ability to declare war, it also says the president shall be commander-in-chief of the Army and Navy of the United States. And being commander-in-chief entails taking military action that's time sensitive, right? You know, if you are on the ground and you're a company commander and all of a sudden you're getting shot at, you don't have time to go up to the chain of command and get the colonel's approval to shoot back. No, you go back and you return fire because of the situation on the ground. So there is some tension there. And we just have to acknowledge, for better or worse, that this is, I mean, for 80 years, if the president is going to authorize the military to go on the attack, this is the way that it's been done. All right, so then we get to this argument about, well, this is a war of personal choice. Trump's just lashing out. What's appealing about this argument? I think the appealing part about this argument, aside from the left's just hatred of Trump, is that there is no imminent threat. Iran is over there in the Middle East. We're over here, and we don't feel threatened by Iran. We don't fear what Iran's doing. But I want to go back into Schumer's statement here. And when he said, Iran must never be allowed to attain a nuclear weapon. Okay, how are we going to do that? How does that actually happen? We don't just get to say, Iran should never obtain a nuclear weapon. Let's put it to a vote. No, the way that's going to happen is that we are going to go over there and we are going to destroy the Iranian regime. The Iranian regime that is only interested in obtaining a nuclear weapon. We have to physically stop them. That's why we have a military. So there's a major disconnect there with this idea of, well, it's a war of personal choice, but also Iran can't have a nuclear weapon. Well, what was your plan? Was it shipping Iran pallets of cash like President Barack Obama did? Because that wasn't a very good plan. To prevent Iran from getting a nuclear bomb required military action last summer, and if Trump is successful here, will put in place a regime that no longer seeks to obtain a nuclear weapon. America wins, our enemies lose. All right, let's get to argument number 3. This is the argument from the right, that this war violates Trump's campaign promises, that it's a regime change war, that this isn't America first. And I think Matt Walsh does a nice job articulating this argument. And I still really enjoy listening to Matt Walsh. And I really value someone who argues from principle because it really forces you to test your arguments and to find, we talk about question 4 in the grade 8, the trade-offs. Really forces you to identify those trade-offs. But I also want to just say, don't be afraid to disagree with someone who's giving you their honest opinion. If you disagree with me, disagree with me. If you disagree with your parents, disagree. That's how we can best find the truth, is to have an honest clash of ideas. And I think it's important to know what's appealing about his argument is that there are a lot of true things in what he said. So let's look at, I think, 3 main contentions that he has. Contention 1, the U.S. government should only do things in America's interest. I agree, 100% agree, and I will make the proactive case for bombing Iran here after we respond to this argument. Argument number 2, Trump has unclear objectives. Well, I simply just disagree. I think that President Trump has made it obvious that his biggest objective is to eliminate Iran's ability to attack the United States and our allies. Let's have a pause point here. What did Iran's leaders think about America? I don't know if you know this. We may not think about Iran very much. You may not be thinking about Iran. You may have had really no thoughts about Iran before today. But Iran has thoughts about us. In July 2024, this is from Reuters. This is a headline. Iranian president sworn in with chants of death to America, Israel. Okay, I think this is really important to understand because we are so blessed to live in America. And I hope you understand how unusual this is, that we are so powerful that a country of 90 million people that wants to destroy us is not even an afterthought for most of us because of how strong our military is. That is a gift from the Lord. But we cannot ignore, and if you were fighting in Iraq and Afghanistan, It was right in front of you, because when they chanted death to America, they were funneling money, weapons to the militias fighting American troops in the Middle East. Those chants of death to America were taken seriously. They reflect what they do. And here's another thing that we in the West have to understand. We think of success as, I got a good job, I graduated from high school, I'm doing fun things with my friends, I've started a family, I bought a house, I go to church, I serve the Lord. The Muslims who ran Iran don't share Western values. They prioritize destroying the West over material possessions and even their own lives. And they hate you. They wanted you to die. And Iran was proactively working with America's enemies in China and Russia. There was kind of an axis there of those three countries working together. So Trump's main objective, stop Iran's ability to project power, either directly or through proxy groups, to attack America and its allies. What I would say here is a secondary objective. New leaders in Iran that will ally with the U.S. And here's what I'd say is kind of a tertiary objective. And Trump is urging the people of Iran to do this, because you have to understand that the people of Iran and the Iranian leadership have two different objectives. Ideally, the leaders that emerge will free the people of Iran. I think there's a benefit to that, because if you have a country that shares your values, your alliance with that country is closer. Those would be the best allies for the U.S. But I also think that if someone seized power in Iran, who was someone that we didn't really like, but was willing to do things in America's interest, I think Trump would leave it there. Now, why doesn't Trump lay out his complete battle plans? Well, I have to say, I actually think he kind of has. I think I read earlier exactly what he wants. But there's also another reason to have a little bit of ambiguity. I just want you to imagine that you're playing a game and you have to get a flag to the top of one of three hills. Maybe it's sort of like a capture the flag game. Except it's place the flag. I don't know. Go with me. I'm trying to make this analogy work. And someone has given you which hill number 1, hill number 2, hill number 3, which hill you are supposed to put your flag on in order to win. Well, if you start the game and you say, I've got to get this to hill number 3, well, you've just made the game a lot harder for yourself, because now your enemy knows, in this case, not a mortal enemy, that your opponent in the game knows, well, we just need to defend hill number 3. Okay, so there are some reasons for some strategic ambiguity. And I think it's a mistake to confuse not clearly articulating an objective with Trump not having one. All right. And then this third argument is that, well, no one supported this before. Trump didn't support this before. It's a total reversal. The White House recently put out a release headlined, 74 times Trump said Iran can't have a nuclear weapon. And this is a quote from Donald Trump in November of 2011. I'm guessing some of the people listening to this podcast were not alive in November of 2011. My oldest son was not alive when Donald Trump said this. We cannot allow Iran to go nuclear. Did you hear that? We cannot allow Iran to go nuclear. January of 2015. This is Trump. We can't let Iran get a nuclear weapon. We can't do it. Can't do it. We cannot let that happen. So President Trump has been very clear of a couple of things. Yes, the Iraq war was a mistake. Thinking that we're just going to bring democracy and the whole Western view of the world to the Middle East was a mistake. We don't want to get involved in an endless war. But we also cannot let Iran get a nuclear weapon. And when it became obvious, and if you follow the news over the last few weeks, it was obvious that President Trump was really trying to negotiate something with Iran. And when it became obvious that Iran would not give up their nuclear ambitions, well, And then if you say Iran can't have a nuclear weapon and Iran won't agree, won't negotiate away their interest in a nuclear weapon, well, then you're left with physical force, which is exactly what Trump did. And then Matt Walsh makes this interesting argument about, well, no one was saying that we should do this before. Well, I'll tell you what. I think 3 years ago, no one would have thought that eliminating the Iranian regime and paying this little of a cost would be possible. Imagine you're working at a job that pays $50,000 a year, and you're hoping for a $5,000 pay raise. But something happens in the economy where your experience and your skill set becomes super valuable, something you didn't foresee, and all of a sudden another company comes in and says, hey, we'll pay you $250,000 a year. Now, you're not going to be there and be like, actually, you see, I never thought about asking for a job paying that much, so no, I can't do it. You're going to go, that is a major opportunity. Yes, of course I'm going to go take that job. Just because you didn't ask for something, or just because you didn't think something was possible, doesn't mean that you shouldn't jump at an opportunity when it presents itself. And what we've seen over the last 2.5 years since the October 7 attack on Israel is that Iran's proxy terrorist allies have been largely neutered. Israel took out Iran's air defenses. And so there was a unique opportunity to overthrow, to decapitate the leadership in Iran at a cost that was acceptable to America. All right, so let's get to the argument for the correct side. Crushing America's enemies is putting America first. It doesn't have to be more complicated than that. Iran's leaders wanted America destroyed. They wanted to kill you. They wanted to murder you. We had a chance to take them out, where instead of they kill us, we kill them. And President Trump and the brave men and women of the U.S. military, supported by our allies, especially Israel, did it. We won, they lost. That is the essence of America first. And just for a little history lesson, for more than 4 decades, Iran has sought to attack America and our allies. Those death to America chants weren't one-offs. They were the consistent pattern of Iranian policy. When the current leadership of Iran took over 47 years ago, one of the very first things they did was to back a violent takeover of the U.S. embassy in Tehran. They held dozens of Americans hostages for 444 days. In 1983, proxies of Iran bombed a Marine barracks in Beirut and killed 241 American service members. In 2000, Iran knew was likely involved with the attack on the USS Cole. That killed more than a dozen. During the Iraq War, Iranian-backed forces, killed hundreds of American service members. And their aggression continues. In a recent interview, Senator Marco Rubio said that Iran has been producing up to 100 ballistic missiles a month. This was his quote. You see the attacks now? This is Iran in response to our attacks. What are they attacking? Airports, hotels, embassies, facilities, nothing to do with war. And that's a weakened Iran. Imagine a year to a year and a half from now, and Iran under years of sanctions, an unacceptable risk. Now Iran's regime is gone. America won. America's enemy lost. It's hard to imagine something more America first than that. All right, let's go to question 2 of the grade 8. Has this been tried before? This is the response that you're likely to get from opponents of what Donald Trump is doing. Well, yeah, look what it has been tried before. Look at Iraq. We went in, mission accomplished, we declared, and then it turned into a forever war that the American people soured on. Yes, I think it's important to look at Iraq, but Iraq isn't the only military conflict in history. This is from 2014 CBS News. The day before the terror attacks on September 11, 2001, former President Bill Clinton told a group of businessmen in Australia that he, quote, could have killed, quote, the man behind those attacks, Osama bin Laden, in 1998, but he decided against launching a strike out of concern for civilian casualties. So what we see is we have President Clinton with a chance to take out a terrorist, refused to do so because he was concerned about civilian casualties, and that led to Osama bin Laden, just years later, masterminding an attack that killed 3,000 Americans. Question 3 of the grade 8. Is there a principle involved? Yes. It's much easier to solve smaller problems than to let them fester and grow. An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. Let's go to question 1 of the grade 8. What happens next? Well, America's enemies are isolated. Trump deposed Maduro in Venezuela, and he's choking off oil into Cuba. He decapitated the Iranian regime. Those are real wins for America, because when our enemies lose, that is a victory for us. Further, China has less access to oil, which its economy needs. And this may be the most important thing. Because of the leadership of President Donald Trump, our enemies have reason to fear us. For decades, our military has been better than theirs. But what we had under the leadership, the lack of leadership with President Joe Biden, is that other countries had no reason to fear us. Because even though we had a stronger military, we didn't have a leader strong enough to use it. Now we do. We have a president who has the courage to seize tactical opportunities. This is what brings peace in the long term. Now, there is a paradox here. What brings peace in the long term may make the next 2 to 3 months more dangerous. There very well could be, and please, Lord, may it not be, a terror attack on U.S. soil, in Europe, in the Middle East. Troops in the Middle East are facing more danger now than they were a week ago because of President Trump's actions. But that is a trade-off. That's a real trade-off. But the payoff is worth it because Trump is reshaping the Middle East in a way that could make the next 20 to 30 years safer for Americans. Now we go to question 1. What happens next? I don't know. No one knows aside from the Lord. And yes, of course, there are ways that this could go horribly wrong. Now, to say that, it's just Iraq 2.0 is a mistake because there simply aren't that level of ground troops. There's been no indication from the Trump administration that they're going to put that level, that amount of troops on the ground. So to say it's just Iraq all over again doesn't fit the facts on the ground. But what we do know is that Trump has done an excellent job so far. All right. Oh, my word, 40 minutes. Well, it's an important topic. It's a deep topic. I hope what we've had today has been useful. I'm going to end our time with a prayer because our country needs the Lord. Our service members need the Lord. Our president needs the Lord's wisdom. Lord, we come before you. We thank you that none of this is a surprise. Thank you that you are on your throne, that you rule and you reign. Lord, give President Trump, give Secretary of War Pete Hegseth wisdom and courage and guidance. Lord, protect our service members, both in the Middle East, domestically. Lord, protect our country. I pray our country would turn to you, would get on its knees, confess its sin, and ask for you to be our leader, to submit ourselves to you. Lord, you have given us so much. You've given us the greatest country in the history of the world. May we see that as a gift from you, and may we not be so distracted by the gift that we lose sight of the giver of the gift. In Jesus' name, amen. Well, if you enjoyed this podcast, I encourage you to subscribe on YouTube or text it to a friend. Let another parent know about this podcast, and it's a great way to talk through current events together. Be courageous like Charlie, stay sharp, and give God the glory. I'll see you next time.